And he looked out into the field, and there was a pig with a wooden leg. And he goes, oh my God, that pig has a wooden leg. So he pulls over, sees the farmer, and he says to the farmer, I can't believe it. Out in your pasture is a pig with a wooden leg. There must be some amazing story behind that. And the farmer says, that pig, that's a very special pig. One night there was a horrific fire in our house. And the pig busted down the door, ran up the stairs, pulled me out of the fire, ran back in, pulled my wife out of the fire, ran back in 4 more times and saved all our children. That's a very special pig. And Bob says, wow, so he lost his leg in the fire? And the farmer says, oh no, when you got a pig that special, you don't eat him all at once. Okay. So Bob, a tough crowd here tonight, Reggie. You're right, it is scary up here. So Bob continued driving down the country road, and he's enjoying the scenery, and he comes around a corner, and there's a rabbit right in the middle of the road, and he brakes and he swerves and he tries to miss the rabbit, but unfortunately he hit the rabbit. So he stopped, he went out to see the rabbit, and unfortunately the rabbit was dead. And this lady pulled up in back of him, and she came over and said, what's wrong, sir? And he said, well, I came around the corner and there's a rabbit, and I braked and I swerved, but I tried to miss him, but I hit him, and now he's dead. She says, well, I think I can help you. And he says, help me? How can you help me? And she goes to her car and gets this can, and she sprays the rabbit, and the rabbit jumps to life, runs out into the field, and goes like this. And Bob says, that's amazing. What's in that can? And he looks at the can and he reads it, and it says, hairspray, restores dead hair, adds permanent wave. So Bob continued driving down the country road, and he looks out into the next field, the next farm, and there's one of those Australian sheepdogs, you know, the kind that the farmer will whistle a certain way, and the dog will bring the sheep this way, and he'll whistle a different way, and the sheep will come this way, and you know, he even runs on top of the sheep barking, telling the sheep where to go. And Bob goes over to the farmer and says, wow, you got a really smart dog there. You know, he must be really smart. And the farmer says, that dog, that's a very special dog. You know, he can answer questions and he can do math. And Bob says, oh, really? And the farmer says, sure, I'll call him. So he calls the dog comes over, and the farmer says, Bob, ask him any question you want. And Bob goes, how many sheep do you have? And the dog goes, ruff, 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 ruff. And Bob says to the farmer, what'd he say, what'd he say? And the farmer said, he says he has 40 sheep. And Bob goes, well, that's great. And then but Bob goes, hey, wait a minute. I only count 38. And so Bob says to the dog, hey, how'd you get 40? I only counted 38. And the dog goes, ruff, 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 ruff. And Bob says to the farmer, what'd he say, what'd he say? And the farmer says, he said he just rounded up the sheep. So Bob continues driving down the road, and now he's getting thirsty and he's getting hungry. So he pulls over to this bar in this restaurant kind of place, and he sits down at the bar and orders a drink. And he looks up at the ceiling, and there are chunks of meat hanging from the ceiling. And he goes, wow, this is crazy. What are these chunks of meat hanging from the ceiling? And he asks the bartender, what's the story? And the bartender says, oh, we have a special bet here. If you can jump up and grab one of those chunks of meat, you get free drinks, and the meal is on the house. And Bob says, well, what if I can't grab the chunk of meat? And the bartender says, well, you owe us $100. And Bob looks and looks and looks, and he says, the stakes are too high. Okay, last one. Ready? So Bob continues to sit at the bar, and this very attractive woman comes up and sits next to him. And Bob's kind of shy, he doesn't know what to say, but then he thinks, oh, I can start the conversation by telling her about the pig with the wooden leg, and the rabbit with the permanent wave, and the sheepdog that can count. And so he's about to say something to her when all of a sudden she sneezes and out flies her glass eye. Bob reaches out and grabs it, polishes it up, gives it back to her, and then they start talking. So then they go in to have dinner, and he told her all the stories, and they had a wonderful evening. And then it was time to go, so they're out in the parking lot, and you know, they're saying goodnight, and she just grabs him and gives him the most passionate kiss, you know, in the world. And Bob is just wow. And then he says, her name was Sally, and he says, Sally, I got to ask, you know, we had a wonderful evening, but I've only known you for a couple hours. I got to ask, what prompted you to kiss me so passionately? And she said, well, Robert, she didn't call him Bob, she called him Robert. She said, well, Robert, you did catch my eye.